Welcome back to the one and only most amazing Top 10. My name is Danny Burke, and me and you are both humans. As a species, we're doing quite well, I'd say. Maybe too well. Now, throughout history, it seems that as humans grow and expand, we've seen a lot of animals out there go extinct, and sometimes it's completely our fault. There are a lot of species that have gone extinct just because of human activity, so we've tried to handpick just some of them for you guys and talk about them with our top 10 recently extinct animals. First up at number 10, we have the passenger pigeon. Now, these wild birds lived in huge numbers in North America. When Europeans arrived, there was thought to be about 4 billion passenger pigeons on the continent. Now, to put that in perspective, there was about 500 million humans alive at the time. That meant these pigeons outnumbered humans about 8 to 1. What? They would swarm in the air in groups of about a mile wide, and people said it actually took hours for a flock to pass overhead. But they lived in forests that the settlers chopped down for farmland. When they tried to eat the grain from this new farmland, the hunt was on. There were no laws about how many pigeons a farmer could kill, and the killing during the 19th century was crazy. It was just a slaughter. By the time conservation laws came in, it was already way too late. Martha, the last passenger pigeon in existence, died in a zoo in 1914. That one is just depressing. Now though, for our number 9, it's the Caribbean monk seal. As the name suggests, this monk seal was found in the Caribbean, unlike its relatives that you usually find in much colder climates. As with the passenger pigeon, contact with European settlers during the 17th century spelled doom for this monk seal. They were hunted for their oils and also because they were competition for fishermen. One of the problems was they just weren't scared of humans at all. They never tried to run because they never had a reason to throughout the course of their evolution. Now, all of these factors led to the point where the last one was spotted in 1952, and scientists think they were totally extinct by 1960. 7 years later, the animal was placed on the endangered species list. Yeah, I think you're a little bit too late for that. Coming in at number 8 now, we have the Pyrenean ibex, otherwise known as the becado. Now, these wild goats were once common among most of Spain and Portugal for thousands and thousands of years. At one point, there was thought to be about 50,000 of these majestic big-horned creatures roaming around the hills and mountains there. Eventually, though, after hundreds of years of being hunted and having to compete with domestic animals, the Pyrenean ibex numbers began to dwindle. Conservation efforts made by the Spanish government were too little too late. A management plan wasn't even made until 1993, when just 10 of the animals remained. Celia, the last wild Pyrenean ibex, was found dead on January 6, 2000 after she had been killed by a falling tree. The species was declared extinct. Now, scientists did manage to clone a female ibex in 2009, but it only lived for a few minutes. Okay, moving on now to our number 7, we've got the Tasmanian tiger. Now, despite looking like a cross between a tiger and a dog, this animal is not closely related to either of them. It actually belonged to the marsupial family, the one that includes the kangaroo, and like them, it carried its young in a pouch. There are actually cave paintings in Australia going back thousands of years ago with pictures of the Tasmanian tiger on the walls there, which I think is fascinating, but despite their presence there, their numbers slowly dwindled until they could only be found on the island of Tasmania. They started off being quite a rare sight there, but they soon began to hunt farmers' sheep, and the government then started offering rewards for every Tasmanian tiger that was killed. This relentless bounty hunting, along with the loss of habitat and new diseases that were introduced, meant that in 1933 the last confirmed Tasmanian tiger was captured and put in a zoo, where it lived for 3 years before dying from neglect. That's awful. Now, there have been a couple of reports out there of wild ones that have been seen, but until an official sighting is actually confirmed, it does look like this incredible creature is gone for good. That one's actually so sad. They were such a cool looking animal. Alright guys, there are thought to be almost 5,000 different species of frog in the world right now, but we've got one that recently went extinct. At number 6, it's the gastric brooding frog. These little guys are, or rather were, incredible. They lived in small areas in northeast Australia and were never found more than a few meters from a river. The females would actually swallow their own fertilized eggs because they could grow and survive in their stomach, because the mother had the ability to switch off her stomach acid to stop herself from digesting the eggs. This fascinated scientists who wanted to study them and learn this whole trick for humans who had stomach ulcers. But somewhere along the line it seems these little frogs were hit by a devastating disease that completely wiped them out. In fact, the last known sighting of them was in 1981, and despite scientists looking for them ever since then, they've been unsuccessful and the gastric brooding frog has been declared extinct. Okay, halfway through now. Hopefully this is all a bit more educational than it is depressing. I know it's quite sad. But our number 5 now is the Eskimo curlew. Now these long-beaked birds used to be seen flying in massive flocks from Alaska and Canada way down to Argentina and back again. There used to be millions of them that could be seen across North and South America, but with every migration they made, their numbers kept shrinking due to hunting and destroyed habitats. Hunting these birds was banned though in 1916, but after 1939 there were no more sightings of them in South America at all, and the last official sighting in North America happened in 1962. There have been a few unconfirmed reports of them in the years since then, but many experts are saying don't hold your breath at all, because the chances are there are now no more Eskimo curlews. And for our number 4 now, we have the Baiji dolphin. Now unlike its oceanic cousin, this animal could only be found in Asia's longest river, the Yangtze River. This unique dolphin first appeared in the fossil records about 25 million years ago. There they survived for millions and millions of years, using echolocation to hunt for fish. Local fishermen even called the Baiji the goddess of protection, but it was a familiar story when humans began to disrupt its habitat. These days an estimated 12% of the entire human population lives just along this river. Over the past 50 years, China's growth has meant more fishing, more ships, more pollution, and more dolphin hunting. In the 1950s, there were thought to be about 6,000 Baiji dolphins. By 1998, scientists could only find 7. In 2006 they looked again and found none at all, eventually declaring them to be extinct. Next up at number 3 we have the Pinta Island tortoise. Now on the Galapagos Islands there are many different species of giant tortoises. Each one is unique to each one of the islands. One of them was the Pinta Island tortoise. Thanks to tortoise hunting and the introduction of feral goats which destroyed the island's vegetation, the Pinta Island tortoises were thought to be completely wiped out by the mid-20th century. Then on November 1st, 1971, a scientist spotted Lonesome George, the last surviving member of his species. Scientists kept looking, but it really looked like he was actually the last of his kind. They tried mating him with a closely related subspecies, but all the eggs were sterile. Lonesome George died on June 24th, 2012 at the grand old age of, well, nobody's really quite sure, but some people say he was 100. Scientists are still on the lookout for another Pinta Island tortoise, but it's looking increasingly likely that George was the very last one. Okay, coming in at number 2 now, we have the Eastern cougar. Now these days, if you are lucky enough in your life to see a cougar in North America, it's probably not going to be the Eastern cougar variety. They once roamed large parts of northeastern America up into Canada and hunted white-tailed deer. As American settlements grew in the 1800s, they came into contact with the Eastern cougar and a fight to the death began. You get no prizes for guessing who won that one. The Eastern cougars struggled on for about another 100 years. One was spotted and killed in Canada in 1932, and then another in Maine in 1938, and then nothing. They were added to the endangered list in 1973, and then in 2011, 73 years after their last sighting, the Eastern cougar was officially declared extinct. And finally at number 1 we have the Western black rhino. Now these majestic animals were cousins of the white rhino that you guys might recognize, but they'd always struggled to survive compared to them. It's thought that from 1965 to 1995 about 98% of black rhinos were killed by poachers. They wanted the black rhino horns to sell to Chinese medicine dealers who claimed that the horns can cure pretty much every illness under the sun. Spoiler alert, they can't. Now, despite conservationists trying to tell people this, the demand for black rhino horns stayed high, so poachers kept poaching. In 1900, there were thought to be 1 million of these rhinos. By 1997, guess how many were left? 10. The last one was actually spotted in 2001, and after 10 years of no sightings, the western black rhino was declared extinct in 2011. Well guys, it's fascinating to learn about these creatures, but also massively depressing that it looks like they're probably going to be gone for good. I guess the only silver lining might be cloning. Maybe scientists can bring back some of these species that way, and hopefully the animals in this video will help remind people that it's never really too late to try and save a species, because at the end of the day, they're not just the only ones in their forest or country or even on the planet. They're really the only ones of their kind in the whole universe. Yeah, that was quite a deep end to this most amazing top 10 video. Stay good folks, as always. My name is Danny Burt. You can find me on Instagram somewhere down there, and I'll see all you guys soon.